Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of FPL Zombie. Before we get on with the team that I've actually selected to hit game week 1 deadline, I thought we'd talk about some of the differential, some of those players that not everyone else has got that you may want to consider in your squads. Now, it's a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult for everyone this year because the deadline is happening before the league has started. There hasn't been that kind of, that moment where teams have been selected, they're in stone, and then new players have come in a couple of weeks later, and there's a bit of value to be had. So we don't get that benefit this year. We've got to make the decisions early on and run with them. So I thought I'd put together a few players that, there may be that value that people are overlooking, or who could potentially have great seasons. So let's go ahead. I haven't selected a squad, but I've just picked a number of players, in the squad system so we can look through them. So the first one is Joe Hart. He's signed for Burnley. I believe that he's going to be the number one choice. I don't think he would have gone if he wasn't going to be the number one choice. You've got Pope, you've got Heaton. They're both question marks over them, particularly Pope. He's going to be out for the whole season. Will Heaton come in and be first choice? I would edge my bets that Joe Hart will probably get the number one jersey for the whole of the season. At 4.5 million, they're going to be playing a lot of games. I think it's probably good value. And the second keeper to talk about is Leno, Arsenal. Now, why this is interesting is because we haven't got confirmation of who will be the first choice goalkeeper for Arsenal. A lot of people are saying it's going to be Leno, but Petr Cech is a superstar goalkeeper. So if once that question's out of the way after game week 1 and we know who it is, you would expect the ownership of that goalkeeper to rise dramatically. Okay, so it may be worth hedging your bets and going for Leno now. So moving into defence, we'll start with Wan-Bissaka. He's the lowest value card that looks like could be getting some game time this season. So everyone is going to be going for him. I think his value, his ownership is going to be very, very high. So if he doesn't play in that game week 1, he could be dropping sub 4 million, which would be a bit of a disaster for a lot of people because it means you can't get him out for anyone. Okay, so it is something to consider because if he does play, there are points to be had. Palace in the second half of the season were quite tight at the back, so there was those points to be had. The second one in this team that I'm talking about is Mina, Colombian, scored 3 goals at the World Cup. Looked very impressive for me. It was the size. The size of the guy was just so dramatic. He was such a big guy. I think he's going to do well in the Premier League. 3 goals in the World Cup. Does that mean he's going to score many goals in the Premier League? It doesn't really mean anything, but it implies that he does have the chance. It means he will get forward. It means he will get his head on it. The only problem with him is he has been classified as 5.5. I mean, that is incredibly high, in my opinion, for a defender who, with really the lack of experience. He had played for Barcelona, but just a couple of games. We then move on forward to Callum Chambers. He was a new signing for Fulham. I've put him in this team, but I have a question over him, mainly because Fulham have signed so many players. So it's either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be a complete and utter disaster, or just like when Watford did it when they came up and they bought quite a few players and tried to integrate into the team. They did okay. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But Chambers is a very good player, and if they can keep a number of clean sheets at 4.5 million, it could be a surprise package. The next two are both 5 million. The first one's Pereira at Leicester. Leicester needed to strengthen, and they have done in defence mainly. And Pereira is an attacking fullback, so there's the potential for assists and clean sheets. And I think he's going to get both. I think he's going to be one of the surprise packages in the Premier League this season. Last one is Vestergaard. He's signed for Southampton. He's a huge guy. He will get up for corners. He will score some goals. The only problem I have is that he is 5 million and he is at Southampton. but he could be a differential. He could be a differential. I don't think many people will go for him. And if he gets a goal in the first or second week, a lot of people could jump on him. We move into the midfield. We've got a mixed bag here. The first one I've got is Adama Traore, someone who I rate quite highly, in terms of potential. He has already had 2 opportunities in the Premier League where fits and starts. He looked good and exciting, but you could say he was playing in a terrible team. This year, he's going to be playing for Wolves, who have made so much investment. They've strengthened. The players that they've brought in look very good. They've brought in a mix of experience and potential. And, Traore, if he plays, which I think he probably will. I mean, before in one of my teams, I had Helder Costa and I was hanging my hat on him. But I think he may fall out of the starting lineup for Traore. The power and the pace, we'll have to wait and see. The next one is someone that I think a lot of people might be surprised at. It's Raheem Sterling. Now, if you look at his ownership, 2%, 2.2%, and he got 18 goals and 17 assists. I think a lot of people are overlooking him. Some people will be putting whole World Cup issues, maybe the performances he put there, maybe the game time he played, and possibly the sign of Riyad Mahrez. But I think Sterling's going to get a lot of game time, and he will get goals in this team, in this Man City team. So his ownership will skyrocket, and he could be one of those players that if you haven't got, you are going to be very, very disappointed come 3 or 4 weeks' time. Then we've got 2 guys that have come up in lower ranked teams. The first one is James Maddison, signed from the Championship, performed exceptionally well, was a creative master, and playing in this team that already has established Premier League stars. He's going to be creating a lot of goals. He's in as the replacement for Riyad Mahrez, so he is going to play week in, week out. The only thing with him is the price, 6.5 million. I don't know whether that's overpriced for what he is, but if he is going to be playing every week, he may get a lot of opportunities. The next one is a guy who I am unable to pronounce, but he is Johan Bakash. He's come from the Dutch league, scored a lot of goals. The only thing is he is 7 million. Again, some of these prices I think are just too high. They don't reflect the position of what they should be really. But 7 million. The other concept with him is that he isn't going to be in the same team with Pascal Gross. So in a team that possibly won't score a lot of goals, it's possibly going to be one or the other who is going to get the points here. Then we've got Lucas Moura for Tottenham. Played very little in the second half of the season for Tottenham, but he could be the new signing that Tottenham didn't get. I think he's going to play, particularly the opening half of the season. There's a few injuries, Lamela. There's questions with whether Son will play. So Lucas Moura, he played in the pre-season, scored 2 goals, I believe. So he could be a little differential. A lot of people will be overlooking him for the likes of Dele Alli, Christian Eriksen, and obviously other players that are possibly slightly more expensive. At 7 million, he could be a bargain. So now we're going into the striking lineup of 3 strikers who I think could be the differential, who I think could all get over 100 points. And for this price range, this is what you're looking at, I believe. So first one, we've got Jordan Ayew. Did okay-ish. It fits and starts for Swansea last season. He's now at Palace, deadline day transfer. I would expect that he will play most games. I know they've got Benteke, Zaha, but I believe he'll probably start with Zaha. He's a bit of a maverick sort of player. I think he's got goals. He's selfish. Again, the price. If I remember rightly, last season he was 5 or maybe 5.5. He's gone up to 6 this season, which I think is a little bit cheeky of FPL, but there you go. Next one, Rondon. I think he could be a staple for many, many FPL teams. For me, I think he plays every single week for Newcastle. I think he probably scores 10 goals, so that equates to over 100 points. So he could be a very good player to select at 6 million. The last one I'm selecting is a Lucas Perez, signed at West Ham. We saw him at Arsenal a couple of years ago, then he went back out on loan to La Liga. The question mark with him, and the reason why I've selected him, is because I think the introduction of Lucas Perez into the West Ham squad puts the question mark on whether Arnautovic will play up front, or whether Arnautovic will play in midfield or out wide, or whatever it may be. It may lead to a position change for Arnautovic, with Lucas playing up front. So there may be some very good value for Lucas Perez. So there you go. There are a number of players that I thought I'd just talk about that may be differentials, compared to what everyone else is going for. Everyone's going for the high selected players. These might be some players that you may want to consider. I'll see in the next video when I talk about the team that I have actually selected going forward for game week 1.